So, who am I? Well, handy guide for you, not Phil Mitchell, not Carl Pilkington, me. So 1997, started my career online as a web designer. In 1997, being a web designer meant writing out HTML 3.2 and then typing it in. 2006, moved from being a web designer into the darker parts of the web, which was making my money from Google's AdSense program. And then transitioned into an affiliate marketer for a while, grew that into a link building agency, and then in 2012 helped found Kaboo, which is a link intelligence platform. So, let's talk about links. So, do links still count? Yes. Thank you and goodbye. Okay, so we'll do a bit more detail. So, why am I qualified to have an opinion on links? Well, I've spent the last 15 years making my money from links and SEO. And at Kaboo, we've scored more than 8 billion links for their link risk. We've helped thousands of sites understand and solve their link-related issues, and we've got the biggest disavow database outside of Google. So, links as a topic have become a confusing and complex one for SEOs nowadays. And the industry's got more and more complex opinions. We've seen talks like this. This is Tom Capper at SearchLeeds in San Diego this year, arguing whether Google actually need links anymore. And we've seen Rand suggesting at MozCon last year that links are going to go through the same sort of changes as we've seen with everything else in SEO. And agencies and brands, from personal experience, have a lot more mixed experience nowadays. People say things like, well, we get mixed results from them, or we hear mixed advice about what we should do. Advice like, well, we don't advise you to even bother with links anymore, or links will just come from the other marketing that we do. And things like, we got all this coverage, but it didn't seem to make that much difference. Or I worry about what we did in the past, to which the answer is always, well, Google kind of sorted all that out for us now. So let's try and put some clarity into the actual picture for links for 2017. So where are we today? So to think about today, we've got to go back and see where we came from. Because once links dominated the world of SEO. Because Google began, and in many cases, is still a link-based search engine. And they started with their original PageRank algorithm. And we all know how the PageRank algorithm worked. So the links going into a page gave it a certain PageRank, and then that PageRank was shared out by the links going out from that page, and it had a dampening factor to take the place of the human being in that process to try and allow PageRank to decay over the distance from the original. So, and for years, PageRank dominated the way that rankings were calculated by Google. But in recent years, that picture's developed somewhat and changed. So what are the key changes that we've seen? Well, 2012, we saw a significant change in the stance on links, because before 2012, links were mainly positive for a site. So it became kind of a volume game. And I personally placed countless paid links. And you know, we as human beings aren't that good at realizing what the future holds. We don't see the danger in what's going to happen. Things seem like they're a good idea at the time, but then with hindsight, you think, actually, that was a pretty stupid thing to do. So Google had to step in and had to take some action. And the action they took was they introduced Penguin, they added the link penalties, the manual actions, and then they also started to introduce ways to start to negate some of the value that links can pass. And in 2016, in the last year, we've seen a massive change in the way that search is actually delivered. Because we've seen the resignation of Amit Singhal from Google, who ran search for Google for 15 years. And Amit ran search in a traditional engineering way. He wanted to know how search worked. He wanted to be able to explain how the results were and why they were that way. And he's been replaced by John Giandrea, who came from Google's AI research, which means that the AI really now is running a lot of how search is actually delivered. If you want to learn a bit more about that particular topic, I strongly suggest you go and sit in Will's talk this afternoon, because Will will walk you through those things. His talk is fascinating and terrifying at the same time, so it's really worth spending some time on. So we find ourselves in 2017. And we've now got to question whether links count in quite the same way as they once did. Well, the first thing to say is don't believe the hype. Links haven't gone away, but their role has shifted. They now qualify a site's trust and intent, and they qualify a page is worthy of consideration by those machines. They provide trust and relevance, and they confirm the user data that Google already have, because they've got the Chrome data, and they've got Google Analytics, they've got lots of other ways of getting actual human data. So let's have a look at some proof that links actually still count. So can we prove that they actually count for us anymore? Well, the first thing to note is that Google keep telling us to stop abusing them. 25th of May, they issued a post saying that you should a reminder about links in large-scale article marketing campaigns. Now, Google wouldn't be telling us to stop doing spammy things like this if it wasn't affecting search quality, i.e. it was working. We also see from Kaboo's client experience that an increase in links seems to provide improved visibility. Certainly on longer tail terms move quicker than competitive terms nowadays because links are kind of one of the signals now rather than dominating the signals as they once did. But we can also do some tests that strongly suggest that links contribute to ranking. It's really rare that we get to test something in SEO by turning one of the signals on and off. But in disavow tests, we're able to do that. So the first of those disavow tests comes from Kev Gibbons of Blue Glass. What Kev did was he took a previously penalized domain and he removed the disavow file. And then 5 months later, 37% increase in organic traffic without doing anything else. So turning the links back on improved his visibility. Not brand signals, not domain authority, not anything else, the links. And we at Kaboo have done many of these projects as well. We've done probably 25 or so of these now, all of them positive for the site in question. It's a massively dangerous thing to do to mess around with your disavow file, but if you can get somebody who knows what they're doing and is able to do it well, it's interesting the sort of results that you can get from it. So let's have a look at one of the examples. So US customer, big link profile, 45 million links in the profile, 28,000 entries in their disavow file on a previously penalized domain, mostly recovered now. And what we did is we looked at the disavow file and we looked through and saw which items ended up in there erroneously, what shouldn't have been in there, or what was safe enough to remove out. And we started to trim it down and then resubmit that disavow file to Google. And this is what happened. So when the penalty was lifted, we saw a significant uptick in visibility, and then when we did the reavow, there was a significant uptick in visibility. And these weren't inconsequential terms. These were terms worth millions of dollars to this particular customer every year, moving from position to 6 to 3, from 4 to 2. A significant change. With no other significant marketing activity, links were the factor that changed the ranking. So it's clear to me that links still help boost your visibility. So why aren't they quite as reliable as they once were? So we'll have to have a look at the factors that affect why a link might actually pass its value or not. So it's true to say that Google either penalize or ignore bad links nowadays. And they've even gone as far as adding protection from link manipulation into their core ranking algorithm via Penguin. So what does Google target when they're doing this? Well, they're trying to get to intent to manipulate. They're looking for you to try and weed out where you're trying to manipulate their search results. If you want to educate yourself on what Google considers to be intent to manipulate, then go and read the link schemes page of the Google Webmaster Guidelines, and that will tell you what Google's view of manipulation is. And Gary from Google suggests that there are two things that they either do. So if it's egregious link manipulation schemes, they'll give you a penalty. If not, they'll ignore them. So the way that they give you a penalty is via manual actions. And you think, well, manual actions is something that's kind of gone away a bit, really. Well, in 2016, Google issued over 9 million web spam actions. And when we look at our own data at Kaboo, and we strip out all of the action that we've seen against spam sites, and we just look at the stuff that is against brands, specifically brands, the trend has not really gone away. In fact, in 2017, we're projecting it's going to go up slightly. We're still seeing quite a lot of actions against brands. Link penalties are still a thing, and brands are still at risk. It's important to know your link profile and take steps to avoid those penalties. To do that, you need to review your links and add a disavow file to ensure you against the penalty if you have a pattern of manipulation in your profile. If you don't have a pattern of manipulation, you've just got some dodgy links, then effectively Google are going to be ignoring them. They say if they're not going to give you a penalty, they're likely to just ignore the links. And Penguin is how Google ignore bad links. So let's have a look at the way Penguin works. So Penguin was originally created to help dampen down the manipulation of search results. And it used to penalize the whole site and was run occasionally with massive gaps between it, annoyingly massive gaps between when they ran Penguin. But now in Penguin 4, as of autumn last year, it's now part of the core ranking algorithm, and it's real time, and it's a real problem. I think it's more of a problem than people think it is. Because people say, well, Penguin 4 didn't really make that much of an impact. In my opinion, it has made an impact, it is making an impact, and it's going to be a constant problem from here on in for us. So try and understand why. Let's look at the way it works. So Penguin 4 operates at page level rather than site level. and it removes the ability of problematic links to pass their value. And by removing that equity, the effect is to dampen down the ranking ability of the page that the links went to. And Google say that it operates in real time, and I think that's part of the reason why we misunderstand Penguin 4, really, because they say it operates in real time, but it's not really real time, it's progressive. Because it relies on the signals that the links going into a particular page are either good or bad. And those signals are only updated during Google's crawl, which means that it takes a while for any of those updates to go through the entire link graph. And every time they change Penguin, and they're not going to tell us when they change Penguin in the future, it'll take a while for those effects to be felt, because they're felt slowly as Google crawls all the links. So Penguin is felt slowly and on a page-by-page basis. We're used to, with penalties and with these sort of things, we've seen a big downturn in search traffic or ranking. Well, it was Penguin, you kind of see stuff dying slowly over a period of time. And you can rest assured that Penguin is eating parts of your link profile now. So you need to review your links and think about the intent and quality in that profile. And it's important to know your link profile and what might pass and what might not pass anymore. So what else might be affecting the ability of some of your links to pass their value? Well, Google might not be trusting your sites quite as much as they used to. So they can do that through disavow weight, potentially. Because we've given them an awful lot of disavow data, those little files that we give them to tell them not to count certain links anymore. We've given them masses of this data. And at Kaboo, we try and use what we call propensity to disavow. So the way that works is, if you take these three sites, the BBC, YouTube, and eBay, they'll all have been disavowed hundreds of times in Kaboo's data. But the amount of times that we see links from these sites means the ratio between how often they're disavowed versus how often we see them is very low. If you swap that around and you look at sites where that ratio is very high, where we see them maybe 100 times and 95 times the user chooses to disavow it, the real rubbish starts to float to the top. And it's clear that the same thinking could be used by Google to provide trust signals, not authority, trust signals at domain level, about whether they should trust that site at all. All of which makes links much harder to understand. It's a much more complicated and obfuscated picture now, because we never have all the links. And we can't see the disavow activity of other sites. We can't see what's being negated by Penguin on our site or other people's. And we can't see what Google trusts anymore. So you end up with a very small percentage of your links actually now counting, which makes them a much less reliable signal. Because stuff is negated by Penguin, it's on untrusted sites, people are adding no follows to things, stuff we've had to disavow from previous, means that you've only got a very small percentage of your links that are actually counting. And it's really important to know what that is, because it makes it really hard to compare between link profiles. In fact, almost impossible at the moment. So what do we need to do to make sure that we get and keep the right links? Well, I think the starting point is, I think we've kind of forgotten a bit about how equity flows as an industry. And since the middle of 2016, we've been trying to work on, internally, defining the value of a link. So I've been trying to build a new link metric within Kaboo, or we have. And we've done that because we believe we've got a unique set of modifiers to be able to do that job. And I want to share with you some of the conclusions that work has gone. Whether we get to the point of releasing this as part of the product or not, I don't know. But it's been an interesting process so far. The caveat here being that this is really just defining the value of a link, not trying to take into account all the other myriad of things that can cause a page to succeed or fail. So the general thinking is we have the core link equity calculation in the middle, so Hrefs data and Majestic data giving us that sort of total number of amount of equity that there's there. And then we can dampen that down using our propensity to disavow, our disavow data that we've got, so we've got a lot of it. We've also got the link risk algorithm that we've got that gives us some sort of like proxy for Penguin. So we're able to then say, okay, well, some of these sites may not be trusted by Google necessarily, or some of these links might not be passing their value. And then we can qualify all of that using the human opinions that we've got. Because we've got, when you use Kaboo and you're using the browser to be able to make decisions about links, all of that data is recorded by us, and we can use that to qualify that number. So that gives us a final metric. So to illustrate what that's kind of made me think about, I asked people to vote on what links in a particular profile were best for SEO, not defining what best for SEO meant, but asking them to vote on what they thought was best for SEO in a profile. And then I ran the metric across it, and it's kind of made me think about the value that we've been chasing. The top voted link was the independent at 7.5. In fact, the top 10 were all the sort of links that you would expect to find in a content marketing campaign or a digital PR campaign, things that we'd be happy to see if we were reporting out to clients. There were things like The Independent, there were The Guardian, there were Home and Garden magazine, there were those sort of links. But the top scored link when you ran it across was the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds at a massive 92.49. And you think, well, so why is the big difference? Well, The Independent, big site, a lot of equity, but most of the pages on there, being a newspaper, share that equity across lots of links going out from the page. And the nature and pace of them as a publishing site means that the link you get on an article today gets diluted really quickly because it gets buried by new content being published all the time. Whereas the RSPB, again, a big, well-trusted site, likely to pass its value, but the pages have much fewer outbound links, and the structure is much more consistent, so that they still benefit from having equity flowing down from the root of the site. So I think we need to start thinking, again, a little bit, at least having one eye on the equity that a link may pass if it's trusted. We say, okay, well, what about other factors? What about things like the domain authority, the authority of the domain? Well, Google say that there is no such thing as an overall website authority score. So they're suggesting that authority actually comes from the flow of link equity and a raft of other factors, relevancy being the most important one in my opinion. So how do we maintain and build link value in 2017? You need to know your link profile. You need to understand your link profile, and you need to understand what's in there, what might be counting, what might not be counting. You need to reduce the link debt that you've got, get rid of some of the problems that you've got in there, or at least be aware of having steps in place to try and reduce that debt that you've got from historical actions in your link profile. You need to put in place a regular protection and link hygiene thing to make sure that it's clean and relevant at all times, clean and relevant being the watchwords. I think as an industry, we've got to beware the cycle of intent. So if we all chase links from the Daily Mail, if we all chase the same links again and again, then the intent for those links goes up and the trust for those links goes down. So what is ideal today will be link debt tomorrow. Remember, we as human beings aren't great at seeing the danger in what we're doing today or how it could affect us tomorrow. Links still count, and you need links that are going to send traffic, but you also need links that are going to pass their equity, that are trusted by Google, that will remain that way for the long term. So we need to accept that many of our links no longer pass any value and avoid anything that demonstrates intent. Remove or correct any blatant intent in your profile and make sure you maintain a clean and relevant profile. I think we've got to keep an eye on how link equity actually passes and aim for links from trusted sites that are relevant and going to pass their value. And make sure you are aware of every new link that appears. It's not a volume game anymore. It's now a quality and relevance game. And those who adapt are the people who will win, and you can win because SEOs adapt. Thanks for listening.